Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this presentation of OTF Connects titled Using Math Moment to Multiply Math Skills. This is the episode 3 in a series of 10. This third episode is titled Make Math Moment Through Multiplicative Thinking. And again, we have Kyle and John Orr with us today for this presentation. Before we start the presentation, I just would like to read a quick acknowledgement, a quick land acknowledgement that OTF asks us to read before each session. We acknowledge that we are gathered in the territories of various indigenous people, and we further recognize their stewardship of these lands in which we live, learn, work, and play. So we have again Kyle and John with us today. I don't think that I'm going to read the whole bio of Kyle and John every time because we have 10 sessions together, and I think it's going to be yeah, exactly.
It would get a little bit repetitive, eh,
Exactly,
Michelle?
it's going to become redundant. So I'm just going to
Michelle,
tell you.
actually, John refuses to participate. He will not present unless you read his entire bio.
That's on my writer.
Okay. No, but really, it's usually we read it, but I think it's really redundant. But all I can tell you is that if you want to learn more about Kyle, the best is to go to his wonderful blog, tabintoteenmind.com, and you'll see there's tons of resources, lots of really good videos on math. So that's what I invite you to do. So go to tabintoteensmind.com. And then John, I won't read your bio regardless, but John also has two really fantastic websites. One is called Mr. Orr is a Geek, and I really love the logo. I think the logo is fantastic. I don't know if you designed it yourself, but I think it's really cool logo. And then the second one is called mathbeforebed.com, which I think is a great name as well. So what I recommend to all of you, all the participants, is that if you want to learn more about Kyle and John, the best is just to go to their websites. Okay, so I'm going to pass it to you. Go ahead, share your screen, and we're going to start the session.
Awesome stuff. Thanks so much, Michelle. And we'll see you a little later. But welcome everyone back to episode 3. I know that some of you are in the chat introducing yourselves as we get going here. We will we'll use the chat to interact with you and get you to do a couple things and share, just like we did on the first sessions. And we'll probably get you to show some thinking in a couple different ways, also like we did in the first 2 sessions. But let us know if you if you were in session 1, or if you were in session 2. I saw a couple folks, friends there, say they were, but as people are kind of trickling in here, let us know where you're coming from, what your role in education is, and maybe this is your first session with us and you missed the first 2. So let us know all of that info, and we're going to get rolling here right away. Right, Cal?
Absolutely. Good day to everyone. I am again stuck in the basement here at the program department of my district office. Not enough time to get home from my last Teams meeting all the way out to my house. So I'm going to be hanging out here with all of you until well past the start of when we should be making dinner. So here we go. We're going to get going. I don't know if you remember from last week, some of you, let us know in the chat. But if you were with us, you probably remember seeing this problem. We introduced this in the chat. Let us know. Do you remember participating and seeing this particular problem? Hopefully you remember that while many of us tend to see subtraction or even addition, and we tend to stack numbers, we realize that problems like this, we could use the algorithm and sort of do a lot of borrowing and a lot of steps and possibly have a lot of confusion with our students, or we could have leveraged some mathematical models. We also explored that there are more than one type of subtraction structure. So all those years that I used to say that subtraction was takeaway is actually not 100% true. It's sometimes true, and many other times it is not actually true. And today we're going to be taking some of this idea and we're going to extend our thinking into a new land from additive thinking into multiplicative thinking. So today we're going to extend some of the things that that we've done in the previous session. One thing that we've done and we've consistently kept as a goal throughout this series is this idea of sparking curiosity. We're going to try to do this, and we're going to be angling it just like we did in the past to try to get your curiosity sparked as an educator. So that may look a little bit different than what it might look like for students in the classroom. We're thinking of our audience here. However, we're still leveraging this thing we call the curiosity pathway. So we're going to try to leverage that today. John, what else are we going to try to achieve today?
Yes. Last week we kind of ventured into how to think additively, and then we led us into thinking about subtraction. This week we're spending the whole session on multiplication. I always get tripped up. I'm just going to say multiplication strategies, like multiplicative thinking. That's the concept. Is how can we think about conceptually in order to push content knowledge beyond just knowing steps and procedures. So we're trying to stay along the same lines as we did last time, and we will do that all the way through all 10 sessions. Is that we're not just about kind of memorizing multiplication steps like adding steps or subtraction steps like the stacking. We want to be able to make sure that we make connections with how they say, let's say, those rules and procedures that we remember tie back to a conceptual understanding. We're going to use some models today too.
Awesome. And then finally, again, we're really trying to work together with repairing and strengthening our relationship with mathematics to promote developing our own productive disposition. Again, if we want our students to have a productive disposition in our math class, we have to have our own productive disposition. Students can sense when there's like an anxiety there, or when there's a distaste for a subject area. So if that's you, that's okay. No judgment here, but we're going to try to work together as we try to repair or strengthen that relationship so that we can allow students to essentially develop their own positive disposition and productive disposition towards mathematics. So as Michelle had introduced at the beginning, my wonderful, wonderful co-presenter is John. He's got two awesome websites to make sure that you check out. This is more just for the friends that haven't been with us with the past two sessions. So go check those out. Those are a pretty awesome resource, and it's the resources that I still leverage to this day.
And I also leverage Cal's resources over on his sites. Math is Visual is something that he's been diving into more and more, trying to make math in very abstract concepts, kind of like what we're going to be doing here in this session and last session. Abstract concepts. How do you represent these in a visual way? We're going to use some models here with you today, but you're going to find so much more over at Math is Visual, and plus Tap into P Minds has tons of stuff. And if you have been with us for the last couple of weeks, you may remember that we do hold a weekly podcast called the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast. We chat with lots of guests about various topics in math education from kindergarten through grade 12 and beyond. And we love every minute of that. And I think this week we have our guest Carmen out, which is a guest we've had 3 times on. We talk about teaching during the pandemic and what she's doing with math portfolios.
Super cool. And actually, yeah, she's from Richmond Hill. So,
yes.
Fellow Ontario teacher. So if you want to go check out what she's up to, definitely check out that episode. So as you've seen, for those who have been with us, everything we're going to do, we're going to try to tie back to our 3-part framework, this idea of curiosity, making sure that we're engaging students, something we recently learned through an interview that we did on the podcast, which will be coming out in the new year, is just this idea that students are not inherently engaged or disengaged. It's like a state of mind, and we can help control that, and we can help leverage some tools and strategies to help engage our students. And most importantly, throughout this series, we're going to try to leverage fueling sense making to make sense of some of the math that maybe we didn't fully understand conceptually as we were working our way through the K through 12 math system. And then finally, some of the teacher moves that we're using throughout. So today we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get into a task to do some curiosity sparking with you, but then to lead us into some pretty awesome sense making. And you'll notice here, it's almost 4:15. We want to make sure that we dive into some math so that we can really spend some time tinkering with those strategies and developing the conceptual understanding. So John, help frame it out. How are we going to do it today for folks who have not experienced some of these tasks that we tend to leverage whenever we're trying to spark curiosity with a new idea?
So just like Kyle's got up on the screen, we have we ask our students to create on their desk, or because when I say on their desk is because my desks are dry erase desks, but in a space where they can write on a whiteboard or on their notes. They're going to create columns where they can notice and wonder. So they're going to jot down point form. And we want you to do that here with us now. But your noticings and wonderings could be written down on a piece of paper. But because we're here, synchronously with you, you can use the chat window. And I'm pointing at my chat window, which is over here. So in the chat here in a moment, Kyle's going to play a short kind of clip or show you a couple pictures here. And what we would like you to do is just jot down in any order anything at all, things you notice and things you wonder. And what we'll do is we're going to look at some of those noticings and wonderings to fuel what we are going to do next. Okay, so think about things you notice, think about things you wonder, write them all down. Kyle will, he has control of the screen right there. So go ahead, Kyle. Show them what to notice and show them what to wonder.
All right. And before I do, I just want to mention as well that if you happen to, as we're doing some of this, we even frame this with students sometimes, be sure that if you've seen or even maybe used a task that we're using throughout this series, try to go with it and try not to rob the thinking from others in the room. So for example, if you use this task today because someone on social media actually posted that they did, so if that person's here with us today, obviously we don't want to rob the thinking of others. And that's what we try to frame for our students as well. We want to make sure that we're leveraging and we're trying to help push all of our thinking forward. So we're going to do this as a team here today. So let's have a quick look at this screen. And the prompt is, what do you notice? What do you wonder here? And really what we're trying to do is get a sense of what you are noticing here and what you analyzing this image. I see in the chat, the first one is, whoa.
Anything, smokes. Anything and everything. Go ahead, fill that chat up with things you notice, things you wonder.
Yes. John, start reading some out here. The chat's starting to move quick.
It's gonna go. It's gonna go. Yeah, that's the nice thing about the chat is it'll go quick, and then we have to scroll. I'm gonna pick out a couple things. I'm just gonna read them out. Go from the top here. It's we've got how many donuts? Rows of donuts. Tasty. Doesn't look too heavy. Chantel's saying it's an irregular polygon. Annabelle's like, there's an array. Marcus says it's symmetrical and in groups. Melanie says, how big are those donuts? I'm going to skip down a couple here. Laura says, how heavy is that? Teresa says, what is the area that this occupies? The length and the width of the box. Tiffany, as a wonder, is like, how many donuts? There's a lot of how many donuts. We got a lot of how many donuts for sure. It looks like Cheerios.
I love one. Yeah, that one seems to always come up at some point, right? Everybody's always like, they kind of look like Cheerios. Yeah.
Here's one from Steve. How much does it cost? And then Faye's got how much do each batch? Oh, that was the same one. How much do each batch cost? There was one about eating. I think it would just skip by me. It was like, I think we've seen this one before too, Kyle. It's like, how many calories is all of that? Right? Yeah. It's there's lots of noticings, lots of wondering here.
How long on the treadmill do I have to run in order to burn off all of that? And at the end of the day, like I'm still thinking, I'm still thinking it's worth it though. Here's the thing. I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Many noticings.
Before you go on, Kyle, I want to point this one out, which Kath says, like, why ? Right? It's like, I think as teachers, when we pose this question, we're worried about what's going to come out. And we've said this on the podcast. We've said this in our other teachings that we have online and our other webinars. And I think we may have said it back in the session 1. when we did a problem like this in the series, that you want to get that out into the open, because it's opening the doors to allowing voice to be valued in your classroom. And as students can get these things out, then they're going to have more likely be confident enough to say share a strategy later on. And so why I wanted to point out the why question mark is because sometimes we get scared that, hey, I don't want them to say something like that's like why are we doing this, like, because I welcome the why question, and I actually try to highlight that that's actually a really great question here, and we're going to come back and answer that one later. And what you folks are going to find out here is you probably will realize that we already answered the why, or you will have answered the why yourself. And that's what happens with our students when we solve problems like this with them, is they actually they feel, it's almost like, well, of course, now we know the why. It's very clear. So that why is really great, and I like to highlight when the why comes up.
Absolutely. And I love to, you've sort of elaborated just this idea that we want students, we want even students who are kind of pushing back on the idea a little bit. We welcome that, right? Here's another one of these crazy problems from Mr. Oregon,
Right.
And that's completely fine by us anyway. So as you're noticing here, these are a few that I just saved from a recent classroom experience, a virtual class. I just jotted them down as they were typing, just like you've done here in the chat. We want to make sure that we're acknowledging their voice, and that we're respecting and hearing their voice, honoring their voice. And, some kids are going to say things like, no, it's fake. Some kids are like, I can tell it's photoshopped, it's fake, there's no way. And, we want to allow them to share their thinking and value that thinking. So today, what we're going to do, when we answer some of these in here, for example, a few people were saying holy smokes, are those Cheerios? I'm going to tell you, actually, no, they are not Cheerios. That is something I can reassure you, that this was a real box of donuts. And maybe later we might tell you why, right? But for you, I'm going to tell you just straight up now that actually it was essentially, I think it was the Krispy Kreme donuts, some sort of celebration. There's actually an article on my website that this links to, where you can go and actually explore a little bit further. So again, something you could do with your students afterwards if there's some curiosity still lingering. So lots of things that we can do here. But John, you said overwhelmingly there was tons of people saying how many donuts are there? And I would argue that a lot of the other questions you have will require us to know how many donuts. So for example, how many calories? I'm probably going to need to know how many donuts, unless I just tell you how many calories. So that's going to be a part of this process regardless. So this seems like a pretty good place to start. So as we've done, and just like we've done in past episodes with the curiosity path, you'll notice that what we've done here is we've actually tried to withhold some information, and we're trying to create some anticipation through this notice and wonder. And right now, what we're going to have you do is the sort of the last stage. This is where we sort of lock you into this problem. And we're going to have you actually make an estimate. And an estimate is something very different than a guess. We want to make sure that we're clear with this, that an estimate is it's an educated guess. It's a guess based on some sort of reasoning. Right? So it's not just a blind guess here. We want students actually using some thinking here, and we want them to estimate based on what they see. So we're going to give you some time to do that now. But as we do, we also want you thinking about, as we mentioned before, we like to try to get you to create yourself a little bit of a range to work within. Think about that high value. What's that number that is too high for you? You know that there can't be this many donuts in the box. That's going to set you a high range. And then we also want you to think about what would a low number, it's going to be more than 10. I can tell there's more than 10, and we're going to ask you to even be more risky than that. I'm going to argue most of you are 50's too low. I think you could even be more risky than that. So set that range for yourself. And then we'll have you start sharing what is that actual estimate based on some of the thinking that you've done. And also, if you'd like to elaborate, go ahead and elaborate in the chat, why did you land on the number you landed on? Like, was there any sort of reasoning behind that?
That the reasoning is really important. And Kyle, as they come in, I'm wondering, let's share those estimates on that visual number line like we've done in the past. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. Do you have yours?
I have it all queued up. So I'm going to click share my screen, but I think you have to stop first. There we go. Let's share that screen right here. I think you just confirm I have the right screen up.
Sure do.
Awesome stuff. I'm going to bring the picture back though, so that everybody can see it a little bit, and I'll wait for you to tell me some estimates. And so here comes the picture. Let me just do some of this and some of this so that we can see this picture a little bit beside where I'm going to drop the here. I'll just zoom in like that. How about that, Kyle? Does that look okay?
That looks great.
Okay.
Yeah, looks awesome.
So I've got a number line here on the left. And Kyle, why don't you now, let's first, why don't you scan some of the estimates and tell me, give me some two highs. I got to set my scale on the number line here. So give me some two highs.
Yeah, like too high. I see 1,000 is too high. I see a few thousands.
All right, you got some thousands. So let me get that up to 1,000 for sure. It looks like, do we have anything more than 1,000?
We actually do. I don't know if your scale's going to go this high, but
I don't know if it is. Yeah, I don't think it's going to go that high. I think 1,000 is. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave. I could scale it this way. What are you seeing? Let's scale it so that we're seeing some two lows on the number line. Like it's got to be more than. What are you seeing, Kyle?
Too low. I have like 250, 300 is too low.
All right, let's leave it there then.
I've got. Yeah. And all right, so let's start going for some actual. And now, mind you, again, we want to push our students on those too high and too low. Like when you say 4 billion, we go, I completely agree with you. I'm wondering, like, would 1 billion, like, are you comfortable with saying 1 billion's too high, right? Like that's like a fourth of what 4 billion is, right? So, you know, those are things that we want to push our students to think about. Here's some guesses though, John. I see a lot of 500s.
You got 100.
Like Laura says 500.
All right.
Your Sura says 500.
All right, hang on. I'm going to put 500 there, and then you said that was a Laura.
Laura.
Yes. All right, let's put Laura up on the screen here. Now, what we're using right now is Braining Camp, and Braining Camp is an online tool that has some digital manipulatives, and I think you got to pay for it. However, I think you can get a free. You know, they always have a trial here going, but I find it quite useful, especially if you're doing this online, which I know many of you might be, or are, or will be, or so. Also, it's great to use in the classroom too. Otherwise, you can just draw the number line on the board like we usually do if we're face-to-face. Okay, give me some more, Kyle.
Yeah, we're this time though, just because of time, we're gonna have you drop the pegs, and I'll just say the name. So like Sarah's saying 700.
Okay, got it.
I see Liam said 440.
440.
I see another 500.
Okay, we'll chop that there.
I see 400 from Annabelle.
400, got it.
Get those best estimates.
Get them in there
if you haven't already. I see Sarah says 700. CH says 625.
Ooh, that's so far. Everyone's been like a multiple of at least 20, but this one is a little bit more precise. Would you say 6? Would you say 6? 565?
625.
625.
Megan says 560.
560. All right.
Ezra says 750. I'm wondering, like, so I'm looking at this, like, anyone have a best guess lower than 400? Oh, Steve just put in 375.
All right.
The reason why I'm asking this question, first of all, that's a good way to prompt more estimates. If, let's say, students aren't participating, you folks are amazing. You're all participating, so this is awesome. But if they weren't, that's a good way to trigger some more. And then there's also the other thing is to try to like almost get like a nice range going of your class's estimates. And then
Mhm.
we try to get to a point where it's like, is everybody feel comfortable? It's got to be in this range.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, anyone above 700, and I see two people, Ezra and Mo are at 750. So we have two 750s. Anyone above 750? I'm curious here. Or like, is everybody like pretty confident? 770 by Heather. So it's like people are fairly confident. Like if I'm looking at this, I'm like a range of 375 to 770 is like a pretty good, like that's a
Mhm.
pretty good
We're
range. And
close.
it's actually fairly tight considering, right? Like considering we don't have all the information that we need yet. So this is kind of cool to go on. And you can almost like ask your class, like, would you put money on it that it's going to fall in this range? I don't know. I might think about it at least. I'm a gambling man. Melissa says 783.
Mhm.
All
Okay.
right. So some people, it's like we're creeping up here. Is there any like clearly like nobody's above 1,000? So we're kind of ranging in this. I think 500
Yeah.
seems to be like a really popular area for many people.
And it's
So
really nice to, like you said, Kyle, but it's really nice to frame that in so that when we do reveal an answer, we can see how close it was to where we are now, but also like we can rule out that, hey, it's not these values that no one's even close to having a value. So we'll leave that. We can come back to that a little later. I'll leave that up, but I'll come back to allow you to share your screen, Kyle, and to keep going.
all right. Perfect. Awesome stuff. Yeah, good call on sharing the Braining Camp. I know for us, it just seems so sort of natural that we pull those up when we're working with classes. It's really important to kind of, this is a way,
Mhm.
again, to share with students like this. We care about what you're saying. Like we care about your estimates. And in a
Mhm.
classroom, you can imagine how excited a student might be if they're the closest. It doesn't matter whether they came up with the most sophisticated strategy or not. They feel like, wow, I sort of one-upped a few people in my class that, maybe I don't always feel as comfortable in
Mhm.
math class as some others do. So lots of thinking here. Now, here's where we're going to go next. Now with this particular audience, I want to draw out some of the sense making behind multiplication, and later we're going to get into some division as well. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually give you some information, but I want to be very clear on your instructions. So right now, what I want you to do is I want you to put on I'm going to say like your student cap, but I also want you to put on like your cap as a student, like the way you learned to multiply, the way you would have done things. And I want you to start thinking about like, how would I solve this if I was doing what I was supposed to do based on how we learned? And I also want you to kind of have like this other frame of mind. I want you to think about a student who's struggling, like a student who's like, I don't belong in this class. Like I never seem to understand what's happening. Maybe I don't have my math facts down, or I don't have flexibility with number or operations. I want you to try to think of like, how might they access this task? And I'd like you to actually do this work. So whether you want to do this digitally, if you have a tablet, or whether you want to do it on a piece of paper and take a photo of it, we're going to try to collect as many solutions as we can so that we can highlight some of these strategies. All right. Was that clear enough, John? Do you think? Like, do you think people
Yep.
are feeling me?
So
what
I think
what are they saying in the chat? Are they
well,
good?
No, we just have still estimates in the chat, but I think that people might be wondering. It's like, okay, well, what do I do? What do I do? I don't really have enough information to do anything right now, Kyle.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you some information. Now, a lot of students would ask questions like, for example, they're like, are there donuts like behind here, like behind this like little lip? And the answer is yes, there are. And I'm actually willing to give you a little information. I might have students ask me what they want, so they could say, hey, listen, I want this or I want that. Today, I'm going to give you some information, and I'm going to actually tell you how many rows and how many columns of donuts we actually have here, okay? So I'm going to tell you with confidence that there are 32 columns of 25 donuts, or you could say 25 rows of 32 columns. Now, what I want you to do again is to think using your student's hat, and again, my slides
it's
are just
automated.
going out of control. Holy smokes. But here's what I want you to do is I want you to open up a new tab on your device or on your smart device and anything with a camera. And we're going to have you go to joinkh.com and we're going to have you use the pin SIP2234. And this is going to allow us to collect your thinking. Now, we're not going to rush you here. We're going to give you some time, maybe even up to like 4 minutes or so to kind of play with how you would solve this problem. No judgment on how you go about solving this problem. The more solutions, the merrier. One thing that we're going to say you can't do, though, is you can't leverage the use of a calculator, okay? So however you do this strategy, whether it's an algorithm, whether it's using models or pictures, whatever it might be, we're going to have you share.
Yeah.
And if you do more than one solution, do us a favor and do it as separate photos so that we can share them individually.
Yeah. And a couple things here, Kyle, is can you zoom back out to the main? I put the stuff in the chat. We kind of want to see what the picture looks like again with the dimensions. And I know that some eager beavers jump to their calculators right away, and we're doing some thinking and work there. But what Kyle is asking is now to try to show some thinking on your page and take a picture of it and then drop it into the kh.com, joinkh.com. And with that code, that's going to allow you to submit your work or your thinking so that Kyle and I can see it. And the rest of the class will be able to see it too. And this is nice either in the classroom or digitally, as you could do this with your students. And so you're designing a solution that is the way you would do it when you were a kid, or where you're doing without a calculator, but also you're also thinking, or this is another option, is what a student who's struggling might do to solve this problem. Okay, so we've got
and we should also reiterate as well, again, like the actual solution itself, like the number that comes out at the end is the least of our worries or interest. Right. And students over time will develop that in your classroom. And like that will become the culture, that it's like, yelling out the answer really quickly is like something like that doesn't impress, like very quickly we're like, okay, if that's what you think, great, but I don't believe you. We use that a lot, like convince me. How are you going to convince me that that is true? And we want to make sure that you're able to share that with us. Now, a few people are saying that they can't log in or they can't sign in. Hopefully there's a guest button there for you, but I'm just going to double check that on you. Yeah, I'm going to double check it here.
Yep, it worked for me. I just went in, and then there's a join as guest right at the top when I go SIP2234 as the code. Joinkh.com SIP2234. I'm going to put that in an incognito just in case.
Yeah, just to see if we've got an issue here. Nothing's happening. Okay, well, we're going to have you worry about your solutions first. Yeah, spinning a wheel of death is never good. So we'll have you worry about that after. Focus on your solution. Again, the number itself, not so helpful to us. I need to be convinced. So how are you going to convince us? And then we'll have you share that out as well. All right, and we're going to work on this as well on our end to make sure that this is working for you. I can see it on my end. I just don't know if it's.
Yeah, so far, every time I've done it on my end, it's allowed me to see the names. Like you're going to see names there, and we're not going to click create an account. I'm just going to click join as guest, and then I can put in my name. And I click a little bot, and I click join, and then okay, so some people are reporting that you get to that point where you're clicking home or school. I'm going to click home, and they are right, Kyle. I click home and nothing happens. If I click school, nothing happens on my end. Ooh, I'm going to refresh just as a.
All right.
And I refreshed, and I got a blue screen. Go back to join. I'm going to put my name in there. do this one more time just to confirm you guys are all correct. Yep, I'm not clicking through at that end there. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, not fun. Okay, well, let's think of how we're going to get them to share out some of those solutions for us.
I see file. Here now, this could be some monkeying around here. Is that you could upload a picture in the chat in Zoom. However, you'd have to then get that file over to your computer if you're watching us on the computer. So Ezra's like,
actually,
how about
Sarah's saying, like, can we just turn our cameras on? And I'm thinking that
that's
could
true.
be
And
an
hold it
option
up
too. You can hold it up. That'll work as well. I've
Let's
just
turn
never
our
had
cameras
this
on.
issue before.
Yeah,
I don't know why that's an issue. So yeah, we'll definitely do that. Let's give you another, let's say another 30 seconds or so for a solution. We're going to try our best as well to grab a screenshot of your solution. So if you do turn your camera on, hold it up nice and still, and I'm going to try to
that's
grab
the tricky part.
I'm going to try to grab a solution. Super cool. I've got that one.
Awesome.
All
Thanks
right.
so much, Whitney. And
Okay.
are you okay?
Let's see who else. Okay, Annabelle. Annabelle is up next. Here is Annabelle. I'm going to throw that on the screen as well. Awesome. Let's see. Any others? Any other cameras on there, John?
Sarah has one. Can I spotlight that one? I think I can. There you go, Kyle. You should be able to see Sarah's.
Well, I think I pinned too many people by accident.
I think maybe if you want to go change your view to speaker view, I think.
Okay, you've got Sarah up there.
Yep, on speaker view, and then let's grab. I got Marcus next. I'm gonna spotlight Marcus's. There's Marcus on the big screen. You got Marcus's there, Kyle.
I still can't. I don't know why, but I think it's. I've got people pinned by accident. So let me unpin. Okay.
Are you on speaker view? Are you on speaker view? Click your top corner there. Top corner where the little grid is. You know where the little grid in the top corner is?
Yep.
Click that until you see Marcus's solution. So I'll pin these up, and then if you leave it on that view, you should be able to see them. Let me know when you got that one.
No, not working for me. That's okay.
Thanks, Marcus.
There we go. Do it now. Marcus, you're good. You're good now. I gotcha. Fantastic. Oh, geez, Louise. Talk about chaos. All right, nice and steady. Nice and steady. There you go. Okay, perfect.
All right, here's another one, Kyle. This is Chinello.
Love it. Love it.
Did we say your name right?
Yes, you did.
Excellent. All right.
Love it.
How many more do you want, Kyle? We got everybody's got their cameras on.
I think these are good, unless anyone has a visual solution. If anyone has a visual solution,
I'm seeing.
Turn that mic on.
I got one right here.
We've got lots of symbolic.
Here comes one. There you go.
Cool.
And here comes another one. Laura's got one too. Well, did you grab that one, Kyle?
Yep. Okay, got
it. Here's Laura's.
Oh, keep that up. Keep that up there, Laura. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I hope everyone just saw like how you handle when a tech issues take over here. Yeah. So we're rocking. I'm feeling good here. I'm feeling good. Like nothing can break us down here, John. It's great. Yeah. Okay. Here's what we've got. We've got all kinds of different solutions rocking. One thing that I do want to start with, I think I'm going to start here with Laura's. And actually, Laura, are you willing to like walk us through like what you did here, especially for folks that, maybe don't know, like, didn't think to do a visual solution, and maybe they don't even know what the heck you're up to over here. Are you willing to flip that mic on and kind of talk us through?
Sure. So basically, I did it for me. A visual array, and I like to work in friendly numbers. So 30 times. So I divided 30 plus 2, and 20 plus 5, and then I did my multiplication. So 30 times 20 is 600. 20 times 2 times 20 is 40. 2 times 20. Where am I? 5 times 2 is 10, and then 30 times 5 is 150, and now I can go and I can add all those numbers together.
Super
Awesome.
cool. Now I'm
Awesome.
wondering if we were to look at that one, compare and contrast to this one, are there any similarities that folks see between these two methods? I'm just going to make it really big. Any similarities? Any differences? I'm going to give you a little bit of time here to notice and wonder for a moment. Any thoughts? If you raise a hand, if you want to share like what you notice, what you wonder about both of these strategies, feel free to toss a hand up.
I'll look in
because this one on the right, I believe this is lattice. Is that what it's called? The lattice method. And I'm looking at, I see a hand up. Michelle, go ahead and kind of help us notice and wonder with us here. What are you noticing? What are you wondering?
Okay. Well, I see a lot of the same digits, like here. Oh, I can't point. Well, the 6 is there, and there's, if I put the 1 and the 5 that are split in the top right corner, that could be the 150. The 4 could be a 40, and then it has a 1, 0 split. So it seems to have all the same digits.
I'm seeing
inside.
that too.
Super cool. That is super cool. I'm wondering, with a show of hands, of digital hands, how many people are seeing that connection now that Michelle has kind of highlighted that? We're not going to call on you. Just throw that hand up if you see it. You're seeing that connection? Like that to me is so important, is that first off, if I'm teaching a strategy like this one, this is something that emerges from conceptual understanding, or it should. But oftentimes we don't, or it hasn't been taught with conceptual understanding. And actually something that's interesting to us, and I see Denise still has a hand up. If you'd like to share something, keep it up. But if not, you can put your hands back down. When I look at these strategies, I'm thinking to myself, like, how do I help students like work their way through from where they are now to where we want them to be, which is fluent and flexible with number. And I'm just going to highlight something you may not have experienced yourself in school, which is this idea of base 10 blocks. Now, has everyone heard of base 10 blocks? Has everyone heard of them? Hands up if you have. Or
yeah, give us a yes or a hands up.
We're seeing lots of hands up, like lots of people. A lot of people use base 10 blocks for like place value. They use it for addition. They use it for even just representing number, right? So, I mean, they're super helpful, but they're also helpful in like helping us better understand how to actually multiply. And that base 10 blocks, instead of like Lara, who actually had, when I go backwards here, and I go, whoops, I'm going a little further. My screen's taken off on me again. When I go back to Laura's, she's broken up, she's decomposed her factors into 30 and 2 and in 20 and 5. But what base 10 blocks do is it actually forces you to break up the values, break up the factors into 10s and 1s. So as you can see here, this little stick here represents an actual group of 10s. So instead of 30, we actually have 3 10s plus 2 additional. And then over here, we've got 20 plus 5 additional ones. And I'm wondering if you were to take a moment and just kind of visualize, like, how many donuts should go right about here? Like, is anyone able to share just in the chat, like how many donuts do you picture would be right here based on what we see? Like, I've got these base 10 blocks to measure the actual length of my rectangle and my width of the rectangle. What are you seeing, John? Anybody sharing with us?
I'm seeing a
Like,
lot
what do
of
we got?
hundreds, lots of hundreds coming in here. And
Look at that. It's like
Yep.
it fits perfectly in that spot. 100 times 100 is 100. Like that is fairly intuitive for us, right? So I'm like, I'm sure you can all guess, like, what's going to go right here? Check this out. Another 100. We've got, look at how many hundreds we have. We have 6 hundreds, just like we saw in Laura's example, right? 600 total. And now I'm wondering though, like, what about here? Like, how many donuts are going to go here? Can everybody have a look at the screen and just in the chat, like, how many donuts are going to go there, do you think?
Here they come.
Michelle says 20. Anybody
Lots
else
of 20s.
feel like 20? Lots of 20s. Let's have a look. Well, look at this. If this is 10 and we have 2 wide, then I'm going to need 2 10 rods to fill up that gap. And oh my gosh, I'm going to do the same below. I could even do the same down here, except we're going to have 5, another 5, another 5. Look at that, 50, 100, 150. And then finally, we're going to have our 2 10s or 2 5s to make 10. And oh my gosh, if we put this together over time, what we're hoping kids will do is we're hoping they'll take this and then they'll eventually go to this land. They'll go to this land of decomposing number themselves, like Laura did. So we want to help students get to this place where we go, okay, instead of 10s, are you comfortable with 30 and 20? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. If you are, break it down into 30 and 20. And now maybe it could be 20 and 2. We can have 30 and 5, and we can have 5 and 2. And look at that, we end up in the same spot. Now, I'm curious, just out of curiosity, I don't want to spend time on this, but has anyone ever seen, like, some people call it stick multiplication or Japanese multiplication? In the chat, has anyone ever seen that, where it's like a bunch of sticks and people are multiplying, like a crazy social media video going on? And you know, people remembering look at it and they're like, look at this trick. Well, I want to tell you, it's actually not a trick at all. It's actually all based off of this base 10 model. Like, check it out. If I take this and I just put sticks in between all of these base 10s, look at this. Put sticks in between, and then I tilt it, and then we just get rid of the base 10 material. You end up with this stick math that results in the same exact quantities, which is 800 in total. So basically the intersection points of these little sticks is what's representing your different base 10 material. Now, I'm not showing that because I don't want you to go run and teach this to kids. I want to help you see that everything in mathematics makes sense for a purpose. And we don't want to be spreading tricks. Like, we don't want to say, hey, here's how you do it, don't worry about the rest. There's always a reason why. So we want to fuel that sense making and help our students see that, you know what? Eventually, we'll get to a place where maybe I can visualize this in my mind, because check this out. If I actually did it the way we were taught in school, look at the algorithm. Like, usually you started with the 1s. I like to start with the 10s, but like when I do the 10s, like 30 times 20, the answer is 600. When I do like 20 times 2, the answer is 40. When I do 30 times 5, the answer is 150. And when I do 5 times 2, the answer is 10. Notice how I didn't do any carrying. Like, I like to call that like a conceptual algorithm here. Like, you didn't need to actually carry anything here. The only reason why people started carrying was back when ink was really expensive, ink and paper, right? Like, you needed to save paper. Now I think we're good. Like, we're okay with ink and paper. So make sure that when we're teaching multiplication, we really don't care so much about this yet. We want to make sure kids understand what it is they're doing so that they have the confidence to be able to tackle problems like this over here in time.
Nice. Kyle, I some chat was coming in, and people were wondering like what we're using to show that, and Kyle's using, Keynote to kind of, he just made some rectangles here. But Kyle, I built what you were doing over on Braining Camp with algebra tiles, or sorry, with base 10 blocks. Do you want me to showcase that?
Yeah, flip it on.
So if you like, you actually like, I know I'm a math teacher, so I just have base 10 blocks at my house. But if you didn't have base 10 blocks at your house or in your classroom, you can use the Braining Camp app. I'm just trying to find my share screen button. Here it is. I had lost it for a moment. There we go. You're seeing my screen here. So I did the exact same thing. I'm just not finished yet because I've got these extra ones to kind of fill in here, just like Kyle had shown this. These, like, nice thing about this is you just drag them down and you've got those base 10 blocks to kind of fill in. You can see the 600s very clearly. And if, as I said, if you have those blocks, pull them out, because if they're, if they're in, storage somewhere, because it's possible that's where they are, then you can
under a bunch of dust.
It's possible. Like, some people just like, I don't have time for manipulatives, but if we're really going to truly build that conceptual understanding, you do have to start here, and you do have to, like, even when you get into higher grades, it's great to bring them back, because Kyle knows, like, and all of you know, if you were here with us in the other sessions, that we were based as high school teachers, and so I'm so close to just finishing this off right here. There we go. So there's the representation. We can add all those back up. But what is important is this is not only great for conceptual understanding, but this model carries forward. And high school teachers are using models like this still when we get into algebra tiles. And so we're doing the same multiplying, but we're now
make that full screen there, John.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to blow it up, because I think this is a really important point. I'm glad you're making it.
So like, I think if all we're doing is when we get to algebra, we kind of replace some values with unknown values like x, like almost like the exact same representation can be done with, I think the dimensions, Kyle, were 32, right? So we had 32 by what was the other dimension there?
It is 25.
So there's like 30.
25.
So it's like this is 32 by, there's 32 across the top if x was 10. This is kind of what we do in our, say, grade 9 math class, and it carries forward even to grade 12. We do visual representations of multiplying and dividing algebraic expressions. So there's 32, but this is actually x plus 3x plus 2 across the top, and we're going to multiply that by 2x, which is like 2 10s, plus what was it, 5, I think, down here, Kyle, as it was 25.
Yep, 5. Yep.
So 25. I don't think I can duplicate them. I'm just going to duplicate a couple more, and there's the 5. So notice we get the same structure, and when we fill this in, like, do you guys remember what 10, like, remember this was 10 times 10? In 10, it was 10 times 10. You guys were all writing, and Kyle asked you that, and you all said it was 100. Well, what's x times x? It's going to come in the chat. People are like, oh my gosh, we have to do algebra now. I didn't sign up for that. Yeah, Michelle's like x squared. Michelle, like, look,
she's all over it.
It's actually, you got an x squared, which is 10 squared. Like, and then you fill in this exact same picture. Like, it's the exact same picture. If x was 10, you get 6 big squares.
John, you're saying what you're doing with your grade 9 academic class is like the same picture as what grade 5 kids could be doing?
And we do it in grade 9, and we do it in grade 9 applied, and we do it in grade 10, and we do it in grade 12. And in grade 12, we just end up doing the reverse when we're dividing expressions. Yeah, it's almost the exact, look at I just wanted, doing it with an iPad is so much faster, but doing it on paper or with my just cursor is a little bit slower. But I hope you see, do you guys see that this is going to be the same picture as, let me just go back to the other.
Yeah, Julie's saying yes, John. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, John.
Okay, good. I was worried a little bit that we want to make that clear. That
I had trouble with the internet.
Oh, okay.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No problem. I thought you wanted to let us know about
that. That's all right. Hey, I've had trouble with the internet too. I think everybody should know it.
But I'm not filled in there, but you're going to see all those X's down there, and then you're going to have exactly those 10 singles still there. Just the same singles are still kicking around here. So I just wanted to make that clear here, that it carries forward these models. If you build this conceptual understanding, early, a model like that will carry forward to make more sense when it comes time for algebra.
Yeah, any of our like intermediate teachers, senior teachers especially, it's like, it's really nice to see that it's like, we're not just doing this for fun, you know, like there's actually, these are models with legs. And, you know, we'd like to say that starting concrete, starting with context is really important. And it's something that we really like to advocate. So whether you're in like the younger grades, like some of you might be like, well, I'm in PJ, you know, like I'm doing primary, and maybe I'm doing a little junior, but like, what about like even earlier than grade 5? Like, what about grade 3? Well, you know, the notice and wonder could have been like a regular box of donuts. Like a lot of students don't know how many donuts typically come in a box of donuts. And eventually we can do some work around that. And this process is still going to be pretty similar, right? Like we're going to go from like concrete manipulate, maybe even actual donuts, and then work our way to concrete, and then work our way to drawings, and then to symbols. So there's so much that we can learn, and so much that we really should be working with and understanding. And actually something that I thought was pretty cool that I noticed in one of our solutions from earlier, that I'm just going to scroll back to because I saw something interesting over here. Just going to move this out of the way. What I saw was this, and I saw this a couple different times. I know it's a little blurry. That's my fault. I know that when I took that snapshot, it was a little blurry. But notice the decomposing of the 32 into 30, and then the 25 into 20, and then there's, oh no, kept 25 together.
They kept 25 together.
Threw a 2 over here with 25. So it was like I decomposed 30 into 30 plus 2, and they're both times 25. There's something really interesting about that. Like when we decompose, like when I use the base 10 blocks, the base 10 blocks are decomposing all of these quantities into smaller chunks. And it's the same idea. Like if I was to look at, you know, some students are thinking like, okay, well, 6 times 7 might be hard for some students. Like if I just took a pencil and went shunk, and then just like chopped this in half, I'm doing essentially the same thing. And when I do that, I'm introducing brackets. This is like something that you probably also didn't realize as a student. Like you just, one day they introduce brackets and they're like, when you have brackets, do what's inside of them and then do everything else. It's called BEDMAS or PEDMAS if it's in the US. Like that to me is so crazy because here, when I do this with this pencil, look what I've done. I've created 2 arrays. I've created an array of, look at this. I've taken 6 by 5, and now I have a 6 by 2. And when I do that, check it out. 6 groups of 5 plus 6 groups of 2. It's the same thing as me saying, you know what? It's like I took 6 of 5 plus 2. So I have like 1 5 plus 2, another 5 plus 2, a third 5 plus 2. Well, why wouldn't I just write it that way? Like, look at that, 6 groups of 5 plus 2. Like you can see the pencil is the plus. And to me, it's just so incredible that I never knew this. I have a math degree, for goodness sake. And I had no idea that when a bracket came to be, that this is visually what's actually happening. So imagine if we actually had kids exploring this way, rather than just being told, right? And actually seeing that there's the 5 plus 2. Holy smokes, there's 6 of them. And if there's 6 of them, then we're in good shape. And look at that, I have complete understanding of what's going on. And that actually, this has a name. It's called the distributive property. And the strategy is called partial products. So these are things that we really want to make sure students are doing in our classroom. So there's a lot that we can do with multiplication. There's so many different ways we can look at it, but I want to challenge you here. We don't have a ton of time left. The way John and I talk, time flies. And I want to challenge you with another problem. And I don't know, we might have to do the hold up method to get our solutions in again today. Totally cool if we have to go that way. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about something a little bit different. I'm going to give you this scenario. I'm going to say, look at all these donuts. Okay, first of all, not nearly as many as the last scenario. But my question to you is, my slides are on fire, John. They are so on fire. It's crazy. I don't know why.
That's your duplication.
I know, I'm duplicating like automatic slides. Like, how come, John?
I don't know.
Why me? All right, I'm just gonna fix that real fast. Here's what I want you to do though. I want you to do us a huge favor, and I want you to go ahead and I want you to look at these donuts, and I want you to do your best to figure out how many of these boxes of 12, so they fit 12 donuts, how many of those boxes can you fill with these donuts right here? 168 donuts. And I want you to think about how you'd solve this. Again, any way you want, but no calculator. And I don't want anyone to share the answer in the chat. Okay, not yet.
Not yet.
We're going to give you a little bit of time. We'll give you some time to do this. You can do it visually or digitally. And then we're going to have you share some of these solutions. And I'm just really interested about some of the strategies that might come back. And then I want to I hope we're going to blow a couple minds in a few minutes, John. Are you ready to?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
Get some brain juice to go fly in here tonight.
Right. So just to recap, you're looking at answering this problem, but thinking about a strategy and being able to communicate that strategy. So what we'll do is we'll just rely on the hold your solution up to the camera. We know that's going to work here, but don't send them out yet. Don't kind of show. Kyle's really emphasizing that in the chat. But think strategy, draw it out, write it out, be able to explain that in a few minutes. Kyle, you want to put a time on this?
Yeah, well, you know what? We're going to go with, I don't want to make anyone stressed or anything. So we're going to say like maybe 2-3 minutes. But again, I want you to explore, try to work out a strategy. If long division's your way, go for it and share that.
Any way you like. We actually want to see a variety, because the beautiful part, and this is what we talked about last week and the week before, is that when you ask students to solve it any way they want, some might resort to this strategy, some might resort to this strategy and another strategy. And the beautiful part of seeing the variety of strategies is when you can pull them together. Like Kyle's done that. Like he's done it subtly, right? So when he showed those strategies from our last question, and even if you were here last time, and we think about our subtraction strategies, think about how Kyle very carefully tried to tie those strategies together. That's the connecting stage, is how do you connect strategies together? Because you're showing same things. So you're showing the same numbers, you're showing similar properties. So that's a very important move that we make, so that kids can start piecing and making that connection, because that's how really, like, that's the sense making, is how we can connect strategies together. And so he's going to do that. We're all going to do that. But that's why we want to see a variety of strategies. So even if you solve this one way, try to solve it a different way, and then we'll try to we'll see those strategies come out.
Awesome. And I see CH, I might maybe calling on you momentarily because I'd like you, I might try to model your thinking that you shared in the chat. I saw a few people had cameras on initially. I turned them off only because I wanted to just give people think time. But now you're welcome if you want to turn on your camera. John,
let's do the same thing.
If you could do us, do me a solid, and you be the one to go to the spotlight. Use spotlight, and I'll snapshot.
So let's spotlight this one from Michelle first. This is actually, Michelle's got a solution that immediately is what a lot of my students do. And then also it's something that I actually just did a moment ago, is think about what is the number that we're looking for here. So this is pretty cool. Okay, did you grab that, Kyle?
Awesome, ready to go.
All right, so let's look at the next one. Here's another one. I like it. It's the visual. We're gonna go to another. I thought there was another visual. Here it is.
Organize these.
Yep. Here's another visual right here. And we're gonna pull Sarah's up after that. Tell me when you're ready.
I am ready.
All right. Here's Sarah's. Super interesting here.
Super.
And I'm going to switch to Ezra. I just want to pull Ezra's up. Here we go. It was up. What happened here? Did you share when are you sharing your screen, Kyle?
No, I'm not. But I see. Was it? Yeah. Why is this here? Oh, I'm viewing Patrice's screen. Is that who you wanted to share?
No. So that
okay,
maybe that was my fault.
That.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to share.
Oh, this
I
one.
to
This
share...
one's kind of cool.
Yeah. Is that Ezra's? Yeah. That's what I wanted to show there.
Grab that.
And it's hard to see these other ones. It's too dark, I think.
We may have enough.
Let's look at Andrew's here. I'm going to bring Andrew's up.
And something I'm just going to mention to the group as well. So as you're all sharing, you'll notice, like I just mentioned to John, John and I do this a lot. So we sort of know and kind of understand each other a little bit. And what I want to share with you, so first of all, I want to thank everybody for participating and sharing. But I also want to mention that when I'm looking for solutions, I'm trying my best to look for certain solutions that are going to help me with the consolidation of the lesson. So there might be some students who have a solution up and I may not select it today, not because their solution isn't valuable or it's not helpful or I don't like it, but just because we're going to try to make some connections along the way. So I'm going to tell you, like, I see a few that are really, really cool. For example, this one right here. Am I sharing my screen, by the way?
Yep,
yeah,
we can see it.
So this one right here is pretty cool. I know it's a little fuzzy, but you can sort of see how they basically decompose that 168 into 160 and 8. So that is actually, that has a term. It's called partial quotients. And what's going on here is very similar to what happened in these two visual models, right? These two visual models are very similar, except they've taken a slightly different approach. They've taken and they've actually split up the 168 into 120 and 48, and they've used an area model in order to break those down. So these strategies here, I'm just going to make this one bigger. This is a very similar strategy to this one over here, except this one was all symbolic and this one has a visual. So I would probably work on this visual first and then lead to this symbolic representation here to see if students can work through this problem. So lots of really cool ways to approach this. You'll notice that some other people also went with kind of like this multiplication strategy. Like John, you were saying you've seen students use this. There's something really interesting about that. And the reality is that when we are thinking about addition and subtraction, and when we are thinking about multiplication and division, both of those sets are intrinsically related. And it's easier for us to go up than to go backwards. And thus, when I'm solving a subtraction problem, it's not uncommon for students to count up versus going backwards. The same is true for division. So if I was to bring up for a second this iPad screen, I'm just going to fire this up on the screen for a second. And if I'm thinking to myself about 168 donuts, and I'm dividing them into boxes of 12 donuts per box, I'm going to use a little bit of DPB. What I can do is I could use this area model like we saw. Some friends use the area model and they're like, okay, that's 100. This is 168 donuts. And then what they've done is they've sort of broken it up into friendly numbers or friendly values. So for some people, they said, well, if this is 12, they probably didn't start at 168 and go backwards and subtract, like repeated subtraction. They probably started with 12 donuts. These are rows of 12 donuts. And they probably said, you know what, I know 12 times 10 is 120. And then from there, they can say, well, if I do another 10, that's going to be another 120. That's 240. That's too much. So that's not going to work for me. That's not good. But maybe if I did by 5, I could do 5 times 12, and that's half of 120. Now I'm at 60. Now I can try to see, okay, where am I at now? What's my count at? I'm at 180. Oh, shoot, that's too big too. So now they start going backwards and say, wait a second, maybe I just want to go up by 12s from here. Or maybe I want to go up by 2 12s, which is 24. And that gives me 144. And then I can add on another 12, and that's 166. And then I go, oh, shoot, there's 2 donuts remaining. So this is a kind of like a multiplicative strategy that we can use for division. And something else that's really cool is that some students might say, you know what, this still feels like a lot of work to me. They might choose to take some of that thinking and fire it on the number line instead and say, I'm not going to do this big rectangle. I'm going to say, here's how many boxes I have. And here's how many donuts I have. And if I told you that 1 box does 12 donuts, a lot of students will say, well, then 10 boxes is 120 donuts. I could just multiply that by 10. Or maybe some students are just going to add the entire time. And we can use a similar progression and say, okay, well, now I'm going to add an additional 2 boxes. And I'm at 144. I can add 1 more box, 13. And all of a sudden, now I'm at 166. And there I can sort of see the same result coming through. Now, something that's really interesting is that when we actually do the long division algorithm, did anybody out there, can I see some hands? Did anyone do the long division algorithm when they solved this problem? Feel free to fire up a hand if that was kind of your go-to, right? Many of us kind of remember it. Some people might remember it, but not really remember how to actually use it. John, any hands went up there? I think I saw a few, some in the chat.
I got to check. My participants window isn't up right now. Here we go. No hands are current. Oh, there's one. Sarah's got her hand.
And I see in the chat, we have some yeses in there as well.
Yeah.
So if you remember from long division, like check this out for a second. Like if I did long division, it would probably look something like this, right? It would look like, okay, I had 12 donuts. And then basically like what we say, this is the language we tend to teach with long division. Does anyone know long division as like gazinta? Like has anyone ever heard like, how many times does 12 gazinta 1?
Gazinta.
0 times.
I haven't heard that phrase before.
Yeah, gazinta, which is goes into, right? But the crazy part is that that's not what this is asking us. This particular context, if you look at the problem, I'm not saying how many boxes go into 168 donuts. I'm saying how many boxes can I fill with 168 donuts? Does everyone see how the language there of long division doesn't actually match the context of this problem?
Say it again, Kyle. Say it again.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, like right now, when I'm doing this with long division, a lot of people will say, well, how many times does 12 go into 168?
Right.
But what I'm telling you right now is if I look at this problem, I don't want 12 boxes to go into 168 donuts. I want 168 donuts to go into my boxes.
I see what you're saying.
Does that not blow your mind?
Yeah, I want it to go the other way, but I think, you know, the interesting thing is I actually, when you first posed this problem, I thought about taking the box and covering the 168 with boxes, and that would be me trying to figure out how many of those fit into 168.
You could definitely do that. You can use that as a model for sure. I mean, contextually though, it really doesn't match. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell everyone why in a second, why it doesn't match. That language doesn't match in a moment.
It's not matching.
But for those who really like long division, I want to show you how what we did here and what we did in this visual model. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong screen up. Let me go bang. What we did in both of these scenarios, in this area model and on this number line, is or can be seen using long division, except we're going to do it a little different. We're not going to use the logic of like, how many times does this go into this? We're going to use the same multiplicative nature. All right, what did we do? We said there was 12 donuts per box, and we multiplied those 12 donuts by like 10 first, right? Does everyone remember that? Like 10 boxes of 12 donuts. How much was that? Like how many donuts was that? Does anyone remember?
I remember. There we
I
go.
think everyone.
They're all
I see
coming
in the chat. Awesome.
There we go. There we go.
120. Okay, so this right here
Yep.
takes care of 120 donuts. So now I'm going to go do the same process. Okay, I've gotten rid of 120 donuts. How many are left? 148. And I tried the same. And I remember before I went 10 by 12 and I went, shoot, 120. This is why. You know why?
Oh, it's not a one. Yep, just 48.
Yeah.
Everyone was jumping on you. They were all ready. They were like,
I was
no.
like, what?
It's like, it's 48. Kyle.
No, math anxiety. Holy smokes. Okay, so here we go. So if I do that, I go 120 and I go, oh shoot, I don't have enough donuts. Okay, can't do that. We tried 5, right? We were like 5. Oh shoot, 60. Can't do that. Okay, don't do 5. I think we went 2 next. And we said, well, that's 24. Okay, that's great. I'm feeling pretty good about that. And then, okay, go ahead and subtract. What do I have? Oh, here's 4. Here's 2. Okay, great.
2 more.
What can I do again? Oh, I can do another. I think I made a mistake earlier is what I'm realizing.
You did.
Perfect. So when I look at this, I go, holy smokes, I actually have 0 remainder. What did I do over here? What happened over here? This is why.
Yeah.
Got it.
You need
so
to go
this
2
is
more.
actually 168. This was 2.
There.
And I think I messed it up over here.
You
right?
did. It was the same thing both times. We never went back, so I couldn't see.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just fix
exactly
it up.
what you did.
And you know what though?
Excellent.
Like the funny part is people are watching this and honestly, I don't even care anymore because it's just what math class is supposed to be.
Right.
Like math class is supposed to be full
how many
of
you
mistakes.
out there saw Kyle's mistake and was like, it's okay.
Should I tell him?
I don't want to tell him.
His day. You're not going to ruin my day at all. But here's what I want you to see though. Check this out. Here's how many donuts fit in every box. And here's my number of boxes. So I got 10, I got 12, I got 14, and the answer is 14. And I just basically built my long division algorithm off of what we really did making sense. So like we don't want to go here until we've made sense of what's going on way over here.
Yeah. And
now, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I really like how you laid that out because you had another slide before with the other donut problem with the big box that showed concrete, visual, abstract, and showing like that one there. And then now, which is what we did before. It's like we have the concrete model, then we can move to like drawing the area model, but then that results in the symbolic, which is the algorithm that we're so used to, and then flip back to the one you just did, Kyle, on your iPad. Like it's the same thing. And what is really interesting is that how many times do we just jump straight to the algorithm? Like it's the symbols. We go straight to symbols, and then we're like, well, why? This is why kids go, why do we have to know this? Like they're not putting the ideas together. They're not connecting it back to any visual model that they're built from. There's no like value attached into that because it's like, okay, I'm just following these steps. I'm not sure why I'm supposed to put a 48 here or why I'm supposed to subtract here. But if we let our students build those visual models or connect it back to the visual models, it makes more sense. We're fueling that sense making.
And I want to just highlight one extra thing. If I pull this up on the screen for a second and I look at my number line just for a minute here, I wonder when I look at this number line, check out what you see over here, or actually up here, this 1 to 12 and this X over 168. I want you to look on my number line and see if you can see that anywhere. Does anyone see the and actually it
would be, you'd have to have a 14 there.
Yeah, because I added this 2 there, working too quickly. But check this out and like check it up. This is a ratio. This is a double number line, which is like ratio's best friend. So if you think of ratios this way, imagine that students probably don't know why that works. Well, this number line is exactly why it works. Like if you look at it, you go, okay, 12 to 1 is the same as 168 to some number, which is x, which we revealed to be 14 after my mistakes, of course. But you can see that in this solution. So as John mentioned before, like when I'm plucking these different solutions, I want to bring these together. So I want to try to help kids make connections, because if there's 5 kids in my class using a ratio like you see here, but they don't know why it works, that's going to hang them up at some point down the road. They're going to like the wheels are going to fall off. We want to make sure that you go, you know, there's a reason this works. And it has everything to do with this double number line and the ratio table. I can flip that into a table. Now, the last piece I wanted to share before we wrap things up for the night is that this particular problem that we just did, and that whole goes into idea. Remember, the reason why that language goes into doesn't make sense here is because of the context of the problem. Look at the problem. I have 168 donuts. I'm dividing it into 12 donuts per box. Okay, I'm being very explicit with my language there. And you all told me, and you were all right, I was all wrong. You all told me that there were 14 boxes. Now, I'm here to tell you that with this particular type of division, and actually I think I even framed it incorrectly earlier, this is called quotative division. Now I want you to think about this in the chat, and I want you in the chat to tell me, how could I reframe or modify this scenario using the same context to introduce another structure of division? This is a challenge. All right, can you take the same context but kind of flip it on its head to still do division, but in a different way? And John, I want to go back to your point about the Gazinta. You're right, that actually that is the language. I actually framed it backwards. So again, second mistake of the evening for me, that yeah, your logic does make sense. so we'll unpack that in a moment just to make sure everybody's clear. All right, so
there's Lindsay's got one. So does Sarah.
Yeah,
very
what's
similar.
Saying?
They're saying, you know, you have 168 donuts and you have 14 boxes to fill, and now you're going to fill the boxes with. You're going to put 168. You know, you're going to figure out how many go into each box.
Fantastic. So this first one we call quotative division, which again, I incorrectly stated earlier. It's actually the language of long division actually works here, which is why John was like, well, it seems to work for me. The language does work here. This context, look at this. If I say how many donuts will fit in each box, and there are 14 boxes, this is the other type of division. And what happens, I want you to look at this line right here. You're taking your number of donuts per box, and it's trading places with the number of boxes. And by doing so, we call this partitive division, and it actually reveals a rate. It actually reveals how many donuts per box can I fit. So I take that quantity, and I try to determine how much will fit per box. And this partitive division idea is completely different and will actually lead you to utilize different strategies than what we saw here today. Repeated subtraction or addition until you get to the amount is what you tend to use in a quotative situation. But with partitive division, what you're doing is you're kind of like taking all the donuts and you're chopping it into equal groups. You're fair sharing the donuts, right? So early on, kids will go like 1 donut for this box, 1 for that box, 1 for this box, and then they'll share out all the donuts. And then as we get older, you might fair share like 5 at a time or 10 at a time, because you're becoming more sophisticated with your counting strategies. But in reality, think of how crazy it is. I want to see some hands. How many people did not know that there were actually 2 types of division? I'm going to put my hand up because it was only recently that I realized that there was not 2 types of division. You are not a bad person because nobody told you, and they all said, you know what, in every scenario when you see division, we want you to name it as division, even though the contexts are like not the same. And we want you to solve it the same way, thinking of it as Gazinta, when only one of these 2 is a Gazinta problem. And as I mentioned, I want to reiterate, John was right. quotative division is a Gazinta problem. I was totally off track here. I've
You were
lost my
flustered.
mind.
You were flustered because of the slides and the knowledge hook not working. It's totally
It was a really
understandable.
interesting night, but it's not going to drag us down, John.
No,
Sarah's saying her mind is still blown, which is I didn't want to ruin the mind-blowing experience. So I'm hoping that folks really
it's
see
hard to
that.
believe because we both have math degrees and we both didn't know this, and I didn't know this until you showed me last year. And so it's like I still, you know, and if you're still struggling to try to like figure out the difference, that's okay, because I took a while to figure out like, what does that really mean? Like, oh, right, one's a rate and then the other one is you get the rate. Oh, it's sometimes hard to think about, and it's hard to explain to students how that works. So don't think that you're going to be running out and telling kids and showing kids, oh, you got to explain these two types of division. I'm not sure that you want to get into that with students, but it's definitely mind blowing. And I wanted to read Sarah's comment. She's like, she's disappointed there's only 2 types, Kyle. She was hoping there was going to be 4,
exactly.
just like subtraction last week.
Today there's only 2. Come on. Like, yeah, absolutely. And friends, you know, as we mentioned, there's like tons of great tools out there to do this. If you want to dive deeper, we're going to be diving even deeper next week into all of these ideas. We want to make sure that you better feel more comfortable with the 3-part framework. So we're going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to go into, dare I say it, into fractions, decimals, and percents.
That question just came up too, Kyle. It was like, how do we do this with fractions and decimals?
I'm going to try my best to try to handpick, and John and I are going to kind of put our heads together to handpick, because in an hour and a half, you can't, like, let's be honest, we've got so many topics that we want to address. We can only touch on them. Like what we did tonight is not all there is to know about multiplication and division. It's like, we hope that from this you go, wow, there's more to the story, and I want to dive in deeper. So definitely join us next week as we're going to dive into fractions, decimals, and percents. We'll share where you can dive in even deeper with us in the Academy if you choose to do so. But first, we want to see in the chat, can folks let us know, like, I want to make sure you're still here with us. There's just under 100 of you. How many people are feeling good about like sparking curiosity through the use of the curiosity path? Like, do you feel like we're helping you accomplish this goal? Might not be the end of the learning, but I want to just make sure that we're hitting it for some
yeses
of
are
you
coming in. Yes, it's coming.
Awesome,
Also give us a yes if we helped you investigate multiplicative thinking and trying to link conceptual understanding of multiplicative thinking here today, because I think we wanted to go beyond just knowing steps and procedures.
Awesome. I'm seeing lots of yes. And I saw someone mention it, like this last goal is huge, repairing or strengthening our relationship with mathematics. It's not going to even, like this 10-part series we're doing, by the end of the 10th, I hope you feel like more than 10 times more confident than you did in the first. However, it's not going to make it all go away in those 10 sessions. It's going to take time. It's going to take intense work on your end as well, but we're here along for the journey with you. So let us know in the chat, what is your biggest takeaway from the session? John, we're going to give away another one of these. And remember, everybody else, you can grab 30 days in the Academy. Get in there. Go into our Fundamentals of Math course.
Or come back next week too, because we're going to give another one.
Absolutely. So we're going to be giving that away for those who want to get in for 30 days and try it out and just learn as much as you possibly can. You can use the link at the bottom. Many districts actually provide funding for teachers to become members and stay members for the long term. So that's something else you should also inquire with both at your district level. So John, we are going to have folks share out that biggest takeaway, share it in the chat. And then John, you're going to be the big picker. You get to be the guy that's the hero here.
All right. Another 10 seconds here. All right. I think we're going to cut it because it's just about time to go. But I think I got to choose one here, Kyle. I saw one Usually we randomly choose one, but I got to pick this one, I think, because I think it kind of like lets us all off the hook just a little bit to feel good. Sarah Churchill says, I enjoyed seeing Kyle make a mistake. It makes me feel less self-conscious about her own math skills, which is good. It's like, you know, sometimes we're like, oh man, I made a mistake in front of the students. It's so terrible. And then it's like, I'll cause confusion, but you know, it may have caused confusion for a kid or two kids in the class for a moment until it's all fixed up. But kids are seeing you be human. And I think that's an important thing. You just saw Kyle be a human.
Absolutely.
So Sarah, you have just won a free year inside the Academy. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to email us. Kyle, do you want to throw the email in the chat? Email us and say, I'm the Sarah that won, and we'll get you hooked up in the next couple days to get access into the Make Math Moments Academy, where all of our courses live and our tasks too.
Absolutely. Friends, it's been fantastic learning with you all here again for a third week for many of you. We're really excited to dive into the next one as well. So have a fantastic evening, and we're going to hand it over to Michelle to wrap this thing up for us. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to share my screen again for a quick second. Here we go. I hope you can see me. Yeah, I agree with Sarah. We all enjoy to see Kyle make a mistake. And it was really fun to see how Kyle is just like a cat. You can throw him up in the air and he's going to fall back on his legs. No problem. Yeah, he's a mathematical cat. Yeah, exactly. That's his nickname now. And it was really nice to see how he managed to turn the small error into a learning opportunity and go back and correct it all together. It was really, really fun. And also the way you guys dealt with the technology when the technology went a bit wonky, and sharing all the exercise through the cameras. It worked really, really well. And I also loved at one point in the webinar, Kyle wrote, "Love it, you folks are on fire." And I just want to say, Kyle and John, that, you know, your wild math webinars are certainly lighting and fueling our creative and collective fire. So we really love it, and we look forward to being with you again next week, and then many more in January and February. I just want to mention to everyone that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow. There will be a link for you to answer a few questions about this webinar, and you will also find all the archives included in that email. And as I said, we still have many sessions coming up. Still one next week on fractions, as Kyle mentioned, and then we have three more sessions in January on the 14th, 21st, and 28th, and three more in February on the 4th, 11th, and 18th. So I won't make it much longer because we are already running late today and people are eager to go back to their families and to their kids and prepare dinner. So I just want to thank all of you because it was really a fabulous session, and you all participated so well. It was really fantastic. And I will see you again next week, next Thursday, same time, same place. Thanks so much to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks so much for being an awesome host, and see you later, everybody. We'll see you.
Okay. See you next week, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.